For those that are staying home, that are not so actively engaged, I would like to really emphasize that history has always benefited, humanity has always benefited from those of us who have a spiritual, contemplative, mystic quality, to us simply doing the work of paying attention to the business of raising our consciousness. Okay, so when you are home and the hospital is full of patients and activity, when you're at home, if you're sitting there wallowing in negativities and unwholesome mind states, then your mind is literally adding worry and unwholesome mind states to the sum total of humanity. And in some way, you're actually having a negative effect on what's happening in the hospital just by being that way in your mind. The delusion that what you do in your mind and how you are in your practice has nothing to do with what's going on in the hospital must be clearly blown away. We must take responsibility. So when we are fortunate enough to have the time and the inclination of contemplative practice, of spiritual practice, please realize that the wholesome mental states and the spiritual practice that you're engaging in the temple, and remember, we are all in the cloister of the temple now, right? This has been sealed. This is a fact. We are all practicing within the temple cloister, whether you're actually in the hospital or at home. But our Sangha, we are in temple grounds constantly now. So please take seriously the truth that when you're sitting there doing dishes, if you are practicing your bodhisattva vows and you're nourishing the level of your consciousness and the depth of your experience, you are making a direct and positive impact on what's happening in that fucking hospital. Exactly, directly. Not by metaphor, not by hope and wishful thinking, not by hallucination, but by actual fact. Because you in that moment are raising the sum total of human consciousness. By your practice, you are raising the sum total of human consciousness to a higher or deeper level. And this is exactly what we need right now, right? So it's more obvious than ever. It's not more true than ever. It's always been true. When we look outside and encounter our society and the world that we live in the sum total of human consciousness up to this point. That's what human society is anyway, right? And so I would encourage us all to take very seriously the business of being in the temple, practicing deeply. Now that can look like cleaning your closet and vacuuming and taking care of the kids. It can look and should look sometimes like formal Zazen practice. I'll speak about that in a moment. It can look many different ways if your mind is concentrated and if your heart is full of bodhicitta and if your wisdom is engaged. You see, does that make sense? So you must do whatever it is that you do from the deepest perspective that you have even a sense of existing, and then offer that to the whole of humanity. Do not hoard the fruits of your practice. You know, it's one of the things that you notice as soon as you come into training, we're constantly dedicating the merit of everything we do. For those who may not know, every time one of your leadership committees and teams meets, they set an intention, they do the thing, and they dedicate the merit to everybody who needs it the most. We literally hold nothing for ourselves. And so you must cultivate this mind of compassion and presence and sacredness, and then you must completely give it to those who need it most in your mind and in your heart. So it's a very serious thing being at home. It's not you're not sitting there helpless. And I fear that many of our fellow creatures who are at home fall into despair. And by doing so, they don't realize that they're contributing despair, not just for themselves, but for all of us. So for those of us that have the privilege and the good karma and the good fortune to not only encounter the Dharma, but to encounter Sangha and authentic teachings, we really have the responsibility to live powerfully from our vows in this time, okay? Does it make sense to everybody? I'd like a guy show if you understand what I'm saying right now. It's a very, very important business. Very important business. When you go for that walk, it's not just you de-stressing. That's down here, okay? It's good, it's not sufficient. You go for that walk, you contribute that wholesome experience to everybody, including the people who are just getting wheeled into the ICU right now. It's very important. Now, in terms of the weariness, I understand the weariness. I too feel the weariness, but I have the benefit of having done a ton of sesshin, and I've encountered weariness. I have encountered deep, deep weariness, okay? Sesshin, retreat, right? So I made good friends with this weariness character a long time ago, okay? And I tell you this, it's a choice. It doesn't seem like a choice. It seems like a truth. And in a way, it's a truth. But it's also a very sneaky demon, a very sneaky algorithm of suffering of the mind. It's very sneaky. Oh, I am so weary. It seems like it just takes over anything else. Oh, yes, Rinzai Roshi spoke so compellingly about the consciousness of my mind for humanity, but after all, I'm weary. You know what I mean? And you can just kind of like blot out all your better motivations and vows. So I encourage you, if you're really feeling weary, and I do at times, think to your own experience at sesshin. Think to your own experience at retreat, right? I know if you've been to retreat, you've been weary. And it's by definition, it's like that way. Why don't we just have retreats so everything is optional and everything can, we should have a pool and we should have drinks served and we should just everything very, you know, we can have big flowers and just, why not? Well, because you don't get any goddamn training that way. That's why not. You don't get any training, right? So if you're lucky to have been to sesshin, you understand weariness is actually just another experience in mind. That's all it is. So is too much frantic energy. Restless, I'm restless, I'm restless, I'm restless, I can't slow down. It's just another state of mind, see? Don't be fooled. You are not a prisoner to any of these states. Not a one of them, see? What you must do is you must take custody of your spirit. You must take custody of your spirit, right? The compassionate spirit of love. This is not just a poetic line. This is pointing to a possible way of being in the world. You can express and embody and invoke and give away the spirit of compassionate love that we talk about all the time in the daily liturgy. Now, how do you do that? Well, think about when you sit zazen, okay? When you sit, very simple, very specific, very clear, very direct. When you get guidance in zazen, you don't get a metaphysics book and you don't get a Buddhist philosophy tome, right? You get very specific guidance about how to be in your body. So you concentrate in the one point. You have a point here. Take your two fingers, if you would, and put them at your temples. Yeah, good. You've all really drunk the Kool-Aid. Look at how silly everyone looks. Excellent, very good. Okay, so now here we are. Now imagine you have two lightning bolts touching, right? And right inside your brain, there's another one point right in there that resonates with the one that's below your hara, okay? And so what happens is you have a point inside the brain here, that's the sort of the one point upstairs, and you have about 3 sun below the belly button, that's the one point down below. And these 2 points, you have to pull them away from each other. So you let this point rise, and you let the lower point sink, and you make your spine have traction as opposed to compression, right? So your spine is lifting, right? And then you take the spine and you have it go just slightly back. So your one point here is up and your one point below is down, and your Ming Men, or the point in the back, goes back a little bit, right? Why am I talking about this? Because that is how you raise your spirit. You use your body. This is a physical thing. We are human Buddhas. We're here in these bodies. You have got to use your body to invoke the kind of consciousness that you wish to have. If you sit in Zazen in a defeated posture, your Zazen will express defeat. No matter how long you sit there. You can sit there for 1,000 years in a posture of victimhood, and you will never do anything but invoke victimhood. So stop it. You must take custody of your spirit. You must raise your spirit. You have to be strong, right? I don't mean you'd have to go bench press a car or something. I mean, your spirit is raised. Does this make sense? So this is when you're doing the dishes, when you're walking the pooch, when you're cleaning, when you're resting and watching something on the Netflix and chilling out. Make sure that your spirit is up. Take custody of this. If you look at the images that we have of the ancient masters, the paintings they make, if you look carefully at them, they are expressing a body that is awake and the spirit is vibrant. Sometimes you see some painting, some Zen painting, it's like the chi or the ki just leaps off that painting at you. You know, it's amazing. And you look at even some recent masters, you can see pictures of them, you know. Look at a picture of Suzuki Roshi or Maizumi Roshi or Yasutani Roshi. These people's spirit is strong, right? So, and interestingly, it has nothing to do with age or youthfulness or muscularity. It has to do with your mindset and your practice, right? So if you're outside in the world, then raise your spirit and engage with what the world is calling you to do. And this is your active prayer. If you're at home in the cloister, then raise your spirit and dedicate the merit of that to everybody that's out there active in the world. But either way, we must take custody and do not uncritically accept, oh, I'm weary, oh, it's hard, oh, it's confusing. Those things are true, but there's a deeper truth that you can access. Please do. It's important.